Hello and welcome back. Before we get into this week's lesson, I want to let you know that next week marks a turning point in this course. So far, we've been diving deep into, I guess you'd say, music theory, beginning music theory, trying to understand what we're looking at when we read sheet music. Now, we're going to be taking all of that knowledge and go deeper into the actual playing of the piano, the technical parts, the learning new music, and learning how to express emotion at the piano. We'll continue to learn new theory concepts, of course, but that won't be the number one focus anymore. So I'm really excited to turn this corner with you. But now, for this week's lesson, we're still focusing more on music theory, and we're going to be talking about whole and half steps, sharps and flats, and ties and slurs. What is a whole step? What is a half step? It's very simple. Take a look at the piano. You've got white keys and black keys, right? When you go from one key to the very next key, that is a half step. Half steps mostly go from black to white or white to black keys, but there are exceptions. So here's an E. If I want to go a half step up, that's actually a white key. And if I play C and want to go a half step down, it's another white key. So these here are your two exceptions. Now, whole steps are just two half steps. So half step here, another half step, and this is a whole step. Okay, so that's half and whole steps. Now, let's talk about sharps and flats, and also naturals. As a group, these three things are referred to as accidentals. You can think of accidentals as not the norm. It's a little bit difficult to explain since we haven't learned about key signatures or modes yet, but just imagine that each song that you play has a family of notes, and this family makes up most of the notes used in the piece. But once in a while, these strange outsider notes are used with this family of notes, and these strangers are called accidental notes. I promise this will make more sense once we talk about key signatures in later lessons, but for now, let's just learn what these accidentals are. When you see a sharp written before a note, this means that that note is raised a half step higher. Looking at all the black keys, we have C sharp because this is a C and we just raised it a half step to make it sharp. Then D, D sharp, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and A sharp. If you were paying close attention, you'll notice that I skipped over E. So where is E sharp? Well, here's E, and E sharp is this white key here because it's a half step higher. Same with B sharp. Here's B, and here's B sharp on this white key. Once you understand sharps, flats are very easy. Flats make notes a half step lower, just like a flat tire makes your car go lower. Looking at the black keys again, here's a D and this is a D flat, and then E, E flat, F, F flat, notice it's a white key, G, G flat, A flat, B, B flat, and C, C flat, another white key. Now, with sharps and flats, it's possible to have two different names for one key, and this is called enharmonic. For example, here's F. Now, this black key here is F sharp, but it can also be called a G flat. This note, either F sharp or G flat, is an enharmonic note. Whenever sharps and flats are used, there's a rule that says that these are carried through the measure, meaning if you see a G sharp and then that same G appears again in the same measure, the second G will still be sharp, even though the sharp sign is not written again. It's the same for flats, but after the bar line, all sharps and flats are canceled. So if we see this same measure with the two G sharps, then there's a new measure with the same G. It's no longer a G sharp, but just a regular G. Now what happens if we don't want the second G in this measure to remain sharp? In that case, we'd need to use our third accidental, which is called the natural. This cancels a sharp or flat and just means to play the normal note without raising or lowering it. Okay, the last thing on our agenda is ties and slurs. They look very similar, but have different functions. We've talked about slurs before, but let's just do a quick review. When you see this curved line above or below notes, this means to play all the notes within that curved line very smoothly or legato. The tie is also a curved line, but it's only used to connect two or more of the same exact notes. It essentially ties the notes together and indicates that they should be played as one note, but held for the duration of both notes. So if I have a half note tied to a quarter note, you'd only play one note and it would be held for 3 beats. Remember that the easiest way to tell the difference between a tie and a slur is to notice whether or not the notes change within the curved line. If they do change pitch, it's a slur. If they're the same exact notes, then it's a tie. For your worksheet, you'll find a note speller exercise. This is simply notes written out on the staff, and I'm asking you to fill in the note names. So these will include notes with sharps and flats. On the staff, sharps and flats are written before the note that they belong to. However, when you write out a sharp, for example, the sharp comes after the note name. The note speller exercise could be really good review or practice for you if you're struggling to learn your note names and remember your note names on the grand staff. So that's it for this week. Remember, next week we are turning a corner and we're focusing more on the actual playing of the piano, learning new music, getting tips for practice, tips for technique. So I'm very excited and I hope to see you then.